Beijing and Moscow have been watching, and on June 17, 2026, at the Palace of Versailles, the United States government gave them exactly the tutorial they needed: how to outlast the world's most powerful military without firing a single shot at American soil. The ceasefire memorandum signed between President Trump and Iranian President Pezeshkian didn't end a war. It published America's price tag. The White House says the American taxpayer won't spend a cent on Iran. That claim is a textbook exercise in political misdirection. A $300 billion reconstruction fund has been assembled to rebuild Iran. Its purpose? To repair the exact energy complexes, logistics corridors, and steel facilities that Western airstrikes just spent 100 days destroying. The money isn't American. It's being squeezed from Gulf Arab states who face a simple choice: pay to stabilize Iran, or keep absorbing Iranian missile strikes on their own oil infrastructure. That isn't diplomacy. That's a protection racket with an invoice. And the cash didn't wait for negotiations to conclude. Despite Vice President Vance's insistence that Iran is not receiving any cash, President Trump stepped to a microphone at the G7 and said the quiet part out loud: "We have taken a lot of their money. It's not our money, it's their money. If we didn't give it back, nobody would ever invest in the dollar again." In a single sentence, he demolished his own administration's talking points. Tehran walked into the formal talks already paid. A secret back channel through Qatar released additional billions under the cover of maritime transit fees. Iran's precondition for even showing up to negotiate. When you strip away the political theater, the administration didn't just blink. It paid the cover charge, bought the first round, and then called it a strategic victory. Here's the fact the administration hopes you won't notice. Iranian drones and ballistic missiles penetrated US-based defenses in Bahrain, Kuwait, and Jordan. Runways shattered, hangars destroyed. Irreplaceable AWACS surveillance planes and aerial refueling tankers eliminated, aircraft that take years and billions to replace. Over a dozen US service members killed, hundreds more wounded. The Pentagon faces a repair bill already estimated at $29 billion. And that figure, according to Pentagon Comptroller Jules Hurst, doesn't even fully account for rebuilding the bases or replacing the lost aircraft. The ceasefire offers zero compensation from Iran. Instead, Paragraph 4 of the memorandum commits the United States to withdrawing its military forces from the proximity of the Islamic Republic within 30 days of a final deal. Read that slowly. America is paying $29 billion to rebuild bases that it is now legally obligated to abandon. Tehran didn't just win the war, it got America to clean up the battlefield on the way out. In June 2025, US B-2 stealth bombers dropped bunker-buster munitions on Iran's nuclear sites at Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. President Trump declared the program completely and totally obliterated. 8 months later, in February 2026, he told the world Iran was actively rebuilding, and used that claim to launch the 100-day war. Now read the ceasefire agreement. Its central nuclear provision requires Iran to downblend 440 kilograms of uranium enriched to 60% purity, the exact stockpile that survived the bunker busters, still sitting deep underground. And here is the detail that makes the entire war look like an expensive lap around a circular track. Downblending uranium on Iranian soil was the offer Iran put on the table before the first bomb fell. The US rejected it, went to war, and has now accepted it. The bombs didn't eliminate the program. They proved its survival. And now, as Trump told G7 reporters with characteristic candor, the US has cameras on every inch of it. Which is a diplomatic way of saying, we know exactly what we failed to destroy. Trump spent years condemning the 2015 nuclear deal for ignoring Iran's missile program and its financing of regional proxies. The 2026 memorandum repeats those exact errors at a far more dangerous scale. Iran's precision missile and drone programs are explicitly off the table. Iranian negotiators declared them non-negotiable before the ink was dry. More damaging still, By mandating an immediate halt to military operations on all fronts, the agreement hands Hezbollah a legal ceasefire shield at the precise moment Israeli counteroffensives were beginning to bite. The axis of resistance doesn't need to win. It just needs time to rearm. The memorandum just bought it that time. Even the Strait of Hormuz has changed hands on paper. Toll-free passage is guaranteed for 60 days, after which Iran is free to introduce permanent service fees under the guise of environmental and navigational oversight. Without U.S. Navy enforcement, international law becomes decoration. Call it what it is: a permanent Iran tax on the global energy supply. And as for the administration's proudest claim, that it won by reopening the Strait of Hormuz? Before the war, the strait was open, global shipping was moving, and Iran's assets were safely frozen under sanctions. The war started, Iran closed the strait, energy prices exploded, and the global economy lurched. Then the ceasefire, assets unfrozen, naval blockade lifted, oil waivers issued, and the strait reopens. The U.S. spent 100 days and $29 billion to restore conditions that existed before a war it started. That is not a victory. That is an extremely expensive circle. This is the second time in 2 years the administration has traded long-term strategic position for a short-term energy reprieve. In 2025, sanctions on Russian oil were quietly relaxed to ease domestic inflation, at the cost of Ukraine's leverage and European stability. In 2026, the Middle East was the bargaining chip. The consequences are compounding. Pre-war, Washington held tens of billions in frozen Iranian assets and enforced a global oil embargo. Today, those assets are flowing, the embargo is gone, and Iran has demonstrated to the entire world that the Strait of Hormuz is a loaded gun it can point at the global economy whenever it chooses. The U.S. didn't degrade that leverage. It validated it. European allies, watching Washington's reliability evaporate in real time, have launched a historic rearmament. NATO, dismissed by the administration as a paper tiger, has been weakened precisely enough to embolden the adversaries it was built to deter. The 100-day war proved one thing above all: aerial bombardment and naval blockades cannot break a mountain-hardened adversary without ground forces that no democratic government will commit. Iran absorbed the strikes. It outlasted the political will. And it secured a ceasefire that reads, in Tehran, not as a compromise, but as a victory statement. Washington didn't just blink. It published the price at which it blinks and handed the receipt to Beijing. The next crisis won't be in the Middle East.